All right. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to our town hall for Therap's electronic visit verification project in the state of Kentucky. Today is Wednesday, January the 10th, 2024, and we are now officially just shy of 2 weeks into the go live period for EVV in the state of Kentucky. So excited to be back with you guys and kind of check in on everyone's progress. We look forward to getting questions and things like that from you. We're also going to be sharing some additional resources as we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks. We know many of you all are kind of ramping up your utilization of the EVV platform, and as you use it more questions sometimes tend to arise. So we're excited to continue to offer these town halls as an opportunity to be able to get more information out to you guys and to be able to address questions.
Okay, I did send you the receipt. Now, ma'am, I hope you don't mind.
I'm here. There we go. All right. So again, welcome. Our typical housekeeping, as always, we are on Zoom today. And we have everyone muted, but you do have a lot of different ways to communicate with us. We encourage you to utilize the chat icon that you have in your Zoom platform. If you're, for some reason, you're not able to hear or visuals are not coming in properly or whatever the case may be, we've got a group of folks that'll be happy to help troubleshoot that with you and get it figured out. If you were to lose connection, we do have an audio option through the phone. You can see the number and the meeting ID on your screen should be within your Zoom invitation as well, should you happen to need that. So definitely feel free to utilize that. And perhaps most importantly, the part of your Zoom platform that we are expecting folks to use quite a bit is the Q&A icon that you should see within your Zoom panel. As always, you know, we try to schedule some pertinent content for you guys to go over, but just as important as that is we want to hear from you guys as well on any questions that you're having as you continue to ramp up your utilization of EVV through Therap. Please share with us any questions that you have. Again, we've got folks keeping an eye on that. We'll try to respond to all of the questions that we get as quickly as we can. If we're not able to get to particular questions, we will collect that information and respond to them in a public forum, either on a future town hall, or we'll get the answers published to our site, or in most cases, both of those things. So definitely feel free to utilize that and share that information with us. By way of introduction, again, my name is Jason Laws. I'm one of our leads here in the Kentucky, the implementation of the Kentucky EVV project. I am joined again by Stephanie Norton, the Assistant Director of Support for our state team and one of our key experts as it pertains to all things electronic visit verification. So we're excited to have Stephanie here with us. And I think we've got some good content that we're planning on sharing with you guys today. Some of it, you know, we've gone over before. If you guys have been on this series, you know, we tend to repeat some content, and that's intentional because we know not everybody's able to make every call. We also know that as you continue to progress through the implementation process, questions you might not have had 2 weeks ago, you may have now. And so we want to make sure that we're covering information in multiple formats and in multiple fashions, just so that you have the opportunity to get your questions answered. So today we're going to do our quick overview. We are going to do kind of a status check for the state, keeping you guys up to date on what the expectations are from the state of Kentucky in terms of your expected utilization of the system. And then we're going to talk about exactly where you guys are at with using the Therap EVV platform. We'll share some statistics so that you can kind of see what that ramp up looks like. We do have more users in the system today than we did a week ago, and certainly a lot more than we did a week before that. So we'll share that out. You can kind of see where you guys stand. After that, we're going to go back through some review and some new information around troubleshooting data within the system. Again, as we obviously understand, the more you use the system, the more you may run into particular scenarios that you have some questions about. We've tried to share out as many resources as we can, but certainly there's no substitute for us being able to demonstrate right in front of you exactly some of the things that you can do to work with that. One of the big things we know that some of you guys are having pop up are what's referred to as invalid visits within the application. Basically, you submit information, but you get a notice that it's not traveling over to our aggregator because it's invalid, which essentially means there's a particular data element missing as part of that submission. And so we're going to review some of the things you can troubleshoot there, some of the common errors that are occurring. The good news is that we're seeing less and less of that in our data coming in. There's less invalid visits, and those of you that are experiencing them are addressing them fairly quickly, which is exciting as well. So it looks like you guys are getting the gist of how to address that stuff, but we're going to cover some of that today. We also are going to introduce you to some data review and reporting capabilities that you have in the system. Now that you guys are collecting data, you want to kind of see what's in there and see what's getting collected by your caregivers, by your support staff out in the field supporting individuals. And Stephanie's going to run through some of the different options that you have to be able to see your data and be responsive to it. Then we're going to briefly talk a little bit about aggregator access. We're going to talk a lot more about the aggregator next week, but I'm going to touch on it again this week, just in terms largely of how do you get into it, the access to the aggregator and some of the steps associated with that, because we're really initiating a big push on that in the coming couple of days. So you're probably going to hear from us. So I'm going to give you a little bit of reminder information on that piece. But then as I said, we'll focus on that a great deal more on next week's town hall. Finally, we will review the frequently asked questions that have come in, make sure you guys are getting the answers that you need, and then we'll do our wrap up at the close of the call. So with all of that said, let's start again at a high level with the basics. And as a reminder for everyone that we at Therap Services do have the contract to be the electronic visit verification vendor for both home health and personal care services for the state of Kentucky. As of now, we are focused on home health. That is phase one of our project, and we have gone live officially as of 12/28. We are live with the home health folks. For those of you who may be joining in that are interested in finding out about personal care services, we are going to be moving on to you guys in the relative near future. Certainly expect more communication and information about that in the coming weeks. But if you're here just to try to get a leg up on things, certainly we welcome you and appreciate you guys finding out a little more information, but do know that a lot more info specific to our personal care providers are going to be coming soon. As I mentioned before, a part of the contract that we have with the state of Kentucky is not just the provision of an EVV platform, it is also the provision of an aggregator, which essentially means that whether you're using Therap's EVV platform or you're utilizing your own additional system or some other vendor, either way, the data that you're capturing is going to flow over to the aggregator so that we're able to have a repository of all of that EVV information that will ultimately be used to validate and potentially deny claims going forward. So those are kind of the pieces of the contract. Again, we did go live for our home health folks on December the 28th, right after Christmas, with the expectation that all of our providers will have begun capturing EVV data on January the 1st, 2024, which was last Monday. So again, we're about a week and a half into the period that you were expected to collect data. As I've already mentioned, again, just a reminder, there are kind of two ways that this can work. Number one is that you can utilize the Therap EVV platform provided to you at no charge through the state to capture all of your EVV data so that it will then flow over to our aggregator. As part of that contract, you also have the option to utilize our full billing system to be able to submit claims to MMIS as well as MCOs and your other payors. Should you choose to take advantage of that, there's a seamless integration between the Therap EVV platform and the aggregator. But you also do, as I said earlier, have the option to utilize a third-party system. And what we mean by third-party, again, is that if you have an EVV vendor you already work with, you can utilize that, assuming that they can collect all of the data that is necessary and link up to our aggregator to share that information. I know we have obviously already been in touch with many of you and your associated vendors and are in the process of getting connected. I know we've already got at least one vendor connected and are getting pretty close with some of the others. But in that scenario, you would be free to continue to collect data through that vendor. It will then flow over to the aggregator once the connection is established. And but in that particular scenario, again, obviously the contract there would be directly between you and the vendor rather than the state for the EVV platform itself. But those two options are available to you. And again, I know this is review for the overwhelming majority of you. But in the event that some of you guys are late to the party, I think we've already identified who all of you are, but in the event some of you guys are still hanging on out there and just realizing this, we do need you to reach out to us immediately so that we can get you onboarded. If you have not initiated any form of onboarding activities with EVV and you are a home health provider, and I'm going to specify which services that includes here in just a moment, but if not, you can reach out to us directly at Therap through the email alias that you see on your screen, kysupport@therapservices.net, or also to the state from the Medicaid public comment at ky.gov. Either of those or both of those aliases would be good places to start. And when you reach out to us, we do ask that you include your name, your contact information, your name of your organization and provider number so that we can quickly follow up with you and get you on the path to collecting EVV data sooner rather than later. So with all of that said, let's go to a quick status check as to where we are. Again, we've been live now since the 28th of December, again, with the expectation that all of you guys would be collecting EVV data effective last Monday, which was January the 1st. So if your agency provides any of these services that you see on the screen as part of Medicaid in the state of Kentucky, you are expected to collect EVV data. And you, again, were expected to be collecting that data effective January the 1st, 2024. Hopefully that is not news to anyone, but we want to continue to reiterate that is an expectation of all providers of home health services in the state of Kentucky. In terms of kind of the overall expectations for your adoption of EVV, here in the month of January, as you can see, it's kind of a staggered, well, maybe not staggered, that's probably a wrong word, but kind of a tiered level of expectation when it comes to your EVV data. We know onboarding is a bit of a lift. So the expectation for the month of January is that half of your visits are captured through EVV. So 50% of the visits in the month of January are expected to be captured through EVV. That does not mean that you can't do more. We would love to see 100% for all of you guys, but the expectation is that you will be capturing 50% of your visits through EVV. Coming up next month in February, that's going to bump up to 75%. So 3/4 of your visits at that point need to be coming in through EVV. And then by March, the expectation is that we'll be at full adoption and folks will be capturing 100% of your visits. So if you have any questions about that, we do have a message from the state linked directly off of our site. You can click right here to that message and you can go over to the state page, which will basically say to you all of the things that I just said over the last few minutes, but it will confirm the expectations of the state, the services for which EVV is expected to be utilized, as well as those thresholds of utilization over the course of the next 3 months. Again, if there's any questions about any of that, there are plenty of links and phone numbers and things like that, both to the state if there are questions more related to the state, or to put you in touch with us over at Therap if it's more questions about our platform or any of the functionality associated with it. So again, those are the expectations that you guys are all facing. Now, having said that, let's see where we actually are in terms of the statistics. So beginning on December the 28th, again, 2023, right before New Year's, these are the stats that we've thus far captured as of about an hour ago. So I think that was the last time I was able to look at the numbers. But at that time, we had 17 different providers that had collected data through EVV. So given that we know we've got a lot of we've got some third-party vendors, users that are not included in this. This is just our Therap EVV users, which is the majority of them. So most of you guys are collecting that, but if we've got 17 that are, that means we have a handful of you that are not yet collecting. So again, we want to make sure you guys are getting on the ball to move forward with that. And certainly if there are any barriers in your way, please reach out to us. We're here to support. I know we've been reaching out to you guys, various folks within your organization, but please follow up with us as quickly as possible so that we can get you guys going. Out of those folks that have been collecting, we do now have over 700 checked in slots through the system. And again, the overwhelming majority of the folks that are collecting data are doing it through Therap's mobile application, which as always, that's to be expected and certainly the most efficient and effective way of collecting EVV data. We do have a few other options for collecting data for EVV if they are necessary. We have what we refer to as IVR, which is a phone number. It's based on being able to call in from a location, from a phone number to verify your presence. We haven't had anybody utilize that, but it's an option that's available. We also have what we refer to as our web-based check-in, which is essentially for any of you guys that have spent time within the application thus far. On top of Therap's mobile application, we also have a web app, which you can access through your browser that you can check in there. We've had just a couple of folks. We've had 3 check-ins that have occurred through that, but it is an option for you if the mobile app, for some reason, is not available to you. We also offer some offline check-in options. If in the event you were to end up somewhere without cell service and your mobile app wouldn't work, we do give you the ability to do offline check-in. It does require a little preparation ahead of time. So if you know that you're going into an area with sketchy service, you can kind of make the preparations to have that necessary information set up within your app or have it available to you. And certainly we can provide plenty of support and resources to assist you with that. But we're excited to see that a couple of folks have taken advantage of it. And certainly as more of you guys do so, let us know and we're happy to help out. We also have some folks that have been completing some manual check-ins. And what a manual check-in is, it's essentially somebody going in and manually entering the data. And certainly that's better than nothing. And we certainly always expect at the outset of EVV utilization, particularly for those of you for which it's new. There are going to be some manual entries as folks are getting up to speed with utilization of the system. Again, as always, our expectation is that the manual check-in number will go down and the mobile number will continue to go up. But I would say the ratio of where we are today is still pretty good, given that we're less than 2 full weeks into implementation. So excited to see those numbers continue to rise and appreciate all the work that has gone into all of your organizations to get going with this. We know it's no small feat. And so we congratulate all of you guys on the work that you've put in to get prepared to do this. So with all of that said, and all the data that's going in and all of you guys that are utilizing the system, what we wanted to do today is to again go over some common troubleshooting activities you may want to take part in. If you're running into particular barriers, you're seeing things within the application like invalid visits, or you have other questions about functionality, we want to be able to address those. So with that, I am going to turn you guys over to my colleague, Stephanie Norton, who is going to go over some of this troubleshooting and also talk a little bit with you about some various ways to see data within the Therap platform. So with that, I hand you over to Stephanie.
Thanks, Jason. And thanks everyone for joining us today. This will be a little bit of a refresher for those of you that were here last week, but going into a little bit more detail about the aggregator visit statuses and how you may be seeing those on your to-do tab, and also how to search those in your account. So just a reminder here of the different meanings of the status. Invalid, if you're seeing those on your to-do tab, that is an indication to you that you have some corrections you need to make. Maybe there's a missing identifier or something that needs to be edited before that information can go through to the aggregator. So those invalid ones are showing up on your to-do tab. Once you've made the corrections, you'll see that those visits change to validated, which means they passed the minimum requirements and they're in the process of being sent over to the aggregator. What you're ultimately hoping to see is that those visits show as accepted. It means it went to the aggregator and had no trouble being accepted. You may start to see some rejected visits, and that means it did go to the aggregator, but there are certain requirements that the state of Kentucky has specified. So the aggregator can kick visits back if there needs to be an edit made based on those requirements from the state. So most of you are going to be seeing things on your to-do tab. If you're a schedule admin, you'll see those EVV invalid submissions. And just a reminder to you that these are visits that have not gone to the aggregator yet because they're missing something or need a correction in your account before they can be transmitted to the aggregator. So you can click on that word visit or the number to see that list of visits. And what you're looking for is these columns that say status and then validation message. So you can actually click on that drop down that says all, and it will show you any status that you have. So it may say validated, invalid, accepted, rejected. You could click to filter which one you want to look at. And then the validation message would tell you what's missing or what needs that correction. So just to point out, invalid are the only ones that are going to show up on your to-do tab. So you can go to your admin tab and do a search for any visit in any status. This is where you would see rejected visits. They're not going to show up on that to-do tab. So just getting in the habit of coming in and doing a search to make sure that things are accepted. And if you see something that's rejected, going in and making those corrections. We do share these slides on our support page afterwards, and I have linked the user guide that shows how to view these visits from the admin tab. And we did have a note that you're only able to search up to 1 month of it at a time here for visits. Again, here's an example of that status and the validation message, what it would look like. And I've got some more examples to show you. These are from real examples that you may be seeing in your own account. So here's some examples of rejected visits and what that validation message would be. So again, we have to have the 10 digits for that Medicaid ID. So if it does get to the aggregator and there are not 10 digits for the ID, it will come back as rejected. And just a reminder that that identifier does have to be in the 10 digits. This is a one that is kind of more rare, but you may see this at times as well. And if anybody needs to jump in, feel free. This is a rejected visit because the edit that was made changed the address. And if you're changing the address, the state is expecting one of these specific reasons to support that. So those are your exception codes, either that the individual was displaced, you could use other, service outside the home, GPS address issue, or admin error. So it's telling us that we made an edit, we used a different exception code, and these are the ones that we should choose from. So we would go back and make that edit to get that visit sent back through and accepted. So here are the most common reasons for invalid visits for Kentucky providers that we're seeing. Missing that staff social security number, and just a reminder that it's only the last four digits that is required, but you would need to put leading zeros. I'll show you where you can add that in your account to get that message cleared. The location is required on the demographic form under the address. So you may have the address there, but you haven't done those geo coordinates to show where it is on the map. That invalid Medicaid ID, it's got to be 10 digits. In some cases, people haven't put a Medicaid ID in at all, so it's showing as required. And then make sure that the address that you have on the demographic form is complete. It is going to require that zip code as well. So these are the most common reasons that we're seeing, and I'm going to walk you through how to make those corrections. So for your staff social security number, I'm going to switch over into a demo account. So everything in this account is demonstration data, no real data here. On your admin tab under user, we could click on list. And you do have a filter up here, so you could sort by whoever you're looking for. And then when you click on their login name, down here at the bottom, we're going to go to personal details. So this is where we'll find that social security number field. And that's where you would want to enter the social security, the last 4 digits, and then leading zeros. You would add that information in there and then scroll down and click update. I did a little too many. So that's an example. This is not a real social security number, and I'm going to update that. You may not be sure who is missing that social security number, and I'm going to show you a report that you can use to find that information. So on your agency reports tab on the left-hand side of your screen, we're going to go to that report library and click view. And up here at the top in the report name, I'm just going to type in SSN and search. And there is one report here that shows the user detailed information with social security number. So if I just click on that, it's going to give me a report of all the users in my system. And there's this column here for social security number. So these that are blank, if they are delivering an EVV service, which you can scroll over a little bit further here and see their title. So if this is showing that they're a clinician or a nurse or a home health aide, those are people that are going to be needing to check in and check out. And those are the people that you need to have the social security numbers in the system for. So I can't edit from here, but this report does give me a quick look at who's missing that information. And if I needed to, I can export this to Excel just to be able to switch back and forth and make sure I'm correcting all of those that need to be updated. So that would be how you clear the social security number error. And I will show you in a moment how to resubmit all of those. You would want to go in and make all your corrections and then resubmit so that you're not having to do, back and forth, back and forth. All right, so let's go on to that next message. The location is required for the individual's residential address, the individual Medicaid ID, and possibly, some of that address information missing. So all of that's going to be edited from your admin tab. Under the care section, we're going to look for the demographics list. And this is going to show you everyone. So again, you can use this filter up here to narrow down your search, or you can scroll through and find who you want to work on. You're going to click to open. And this information is not in edit form as it is now, but if I scroll down to the bottom right, I can use this edit button. This is going to open all of those fields. So if this person had an error message about their Medicaid ID, this is where I would need to fix that. If it is about their address, that's down here, and maybe you left out the zip code. The other piece that we're seeing is people forgetting to do the location. So this is where you're actually clicking on this pin and searching for this address on the map. So one of the things we talked about before with the location is it's not always 100% accurate. And especially if you're in a rural area or an area that's not well mapped, you may find that you're not getting the most accurate location on the map. So if this is not exactly where we know that address to be, I could actually click on one of these other addresses and you're just going to find that point on the map and use this location. So that's capturing the latitude and longitude, or the geolocation of where this address is in that area. And this is what's going to be used to compare with the geolocation that your staff capture when they check in and out. So if this information is inaccurate, you'll see that your distance variance may show that you're farther away than you're expecting to see, which I'll show you how you can monitor that data in just a moment. So coming in and making these edits, we're going to scroll down and click update. And we get a confirmation that that's been updated. If you have a lot of individuals that you're needing to make these edits for, you can use this shortcut here that says back to list, And that'll just take me back here where I see all of the individuals and I can go to the next person. All right, so that addressed those individual errors and the staff errors that you might see, or the invalid responses. Once you've made all of those corrections, then you can go back in and resubmit these visits. So we want to make the changes first before we resubmit it. Otherwise, they're just going to show as invalid again. So on your admin tab, at the very bottom under that scheduling section, you'll see that TheraP EVV visit. Search is where I showed you how to see all the statuses of the visits, but if you look just past that, you'll see an option that says bulk resubmit. So you can put in the date range that you want to go back for, so maybe January 1st to today, and you could search, and it's only going to bring up visits that are either invalid or rejected, and you would be able to check this box to select all of them in the list and then resubmit in one click instead of having to do each of them individually. So what we would hope to see is that these visits, once we resubmit, that they would show as the status validated. And then within a matter of 30 minutes or so, we would expect to see those show as accepted. If something kicks back from the aggregator, that's when we would see. So here's some examples of common reasons for rejections that we're seeing. So these are the two that I showed you earlier, that invalid ID and the identifier has to be in 10-digit format. So that again is that Medicaid ID on the demographic form. And then this invalid exception code for the schedule address edit. So if you've made a change to the address, it is expecting you to use one of these exception codes to explain why. So it would be related to maybe the individual's displaced to a different location, maybe some other situation, service outside of the home, a GPS address issue, or an admin error. And we're working on some materials that would show you all of the specific requirements for exception codes that the state has defined. Okay, so that was a look at our aggregator visit statuses and how to manage those that are invalid or rejected. And then just remember, once you've made the edits, you would want to go in and do that bulk resubmit. What I'm going to switch to talking about now, happy to answer any questions that you had about that, so drop them in the chat or the Q&A. But I'm going to switch now to look at how do you, as a scheduler or an admin at your agency, how do you review this data that's coming in to understand what may need an edit, or maybe how your agency is doing with this implementation so far? So I am again in my demo account, and I'm going to go to my agency tab. There are a couple of ways that you can look at this. And you know what? I think I actually do have a slide to explain. Yes, there's two ways that I recommend looking at this data, and you can decide which way works best for you, or maybe you use a combination of both. So from your agency tab, you can use this schedule create edit to actually go into the calendar grid. So you're going to see the calendar view. You can look at it daily, weekly, monthly. You're going to see color-coded visits to understand, has this visit been checked in? Has it been checked out? Maybe something was scheduled and no one has checked in for it yet. So in that view, you can schedule something. So if someone's going to be in an area without connectivity and they need to use offline, or they need to call in, you can create that visit for them there, because it does have to be created in advance. You can also make edits from there. So if someone forgot to check out, or their times are incorrect and you need to manage that, you can do it from that create edit view. I'm also going to show you the schedule EVV dashboard, which is another way that you can edit. You can't create new data from there, but you can edit data that has been collected, and you can review up to 14 days of data at a time. It's a nice way to check for quality issues. It's a kind of a report, but you can make changes to the data from that view. So let's go look at the create edit first to show you that calendar grid view. So again, agency tab under scheduling, create edit. it's going to show you your program. So you may just have the one program in your agency, or maybe you're a regional provider and you have different counties here. You're going to choose which program you want to look into, and then you would click next. That's going to load the individuals that are enrolled under that program that have been set up for scheduling. So I'm going to select all of them here, but I want to point out over here that there is this column that is the status, and it shows as available. If you have multiple people working within the scheduling module at your agency, this can show as locked sometimes. So if you don't actually need to work with all of these individuals, you may just want to come in and choose the person that you want to work on, so that it leaves these other individuals available for other admins and schedulers at your agency to work on at the same time. When I click next, it's showing me a list of all my staff. I recommend just scrolling down and clicking skip. It's going to give you access to all of those staff. And here we are on that calendar grid. So I'm always going to be brought to my current date. And what I'm seeing here is this date starting at midnight and going through the end of the day, 11:59 p.m. Up at the top left, I have my color codes to let me know what I'm looking at. So green is good. That is a completed visit. That means someone checked in and checked out. And I can actually hover over this to see a little bit more information, or double click to review all of the information here, including any comments that my provider left. So in this case, checked in at 9:47, checked out at 9:50. And there's a comment here saying that the user forgot to check in when they arrived, and they actually started at 9:15 and they ended their visit at 9:50. So we're going to come back in just a moment and edit that to show you how you can make those changes. But for now, I'm going to switch over to the month view. This is a view that I like to look at because it shows me the different statuses that things are in. So again, green is good. That means it's a completed visit. Anything that is blue was scheduled. Someone put the schedule in, but no one completed a check-in or check-out for that visit yet. So that, if it's something in the past, would be something that you may need to manually edit if this visit did occur. I'm not showing on my screen, but this orange incomplete color, that would appear for any visit that has been checked in, but has not been checked out. So if it's something that was happening today and we had an orange visit, I would just let that remain as is, because the visit may still be in progress. So I'm not going to make those edits until maybe the end of the day or the beginning of the next day, when I know for sure someone forgot to check out for that visit. Another thing I want to point out are some of these green visits have a red border around them. So it doesn't necessarily mean that something's wrong, but it's just something that you would want to take another look at. So I can hover over this to see, or I can double click to open. So up here at the top is what was scheduled. So this visit was put in advance, and it was scheduled to happen from 8 to 9. If I scroll down to the actual check-in and check-out, I can see that the staff checked in at 8:05 and checked out at 9:30. So because this was scheduled in advance, the system is expecting it to match this start and end time, but I went over more than 15 minutes before or after that time. Doesn't mean I have to make an edit. If this is accurate, then I would just leave it as is. But those red borders are just flagging it for you. Hey, there's something that is different. There's a variance here that you may want to take a look at. So for this one, again, 8 to 9 was the schedule, 9:10 to 9:55. And then this one for today is the one that we were seeing where I left a comment. So in this case, the red border is indicating to me that I need to make a change, because they left a comment here explaining that they actually arrived at 9:15. So on this screen, in this section here, if I look over to the right, and sometimes you may have to scroll a little bit over to the right to see that all the way, we're looking for action edit. This is what opens that check-in and check-out data. And from here, I can manually edit this information. So I'm going to click on the calendar and then use the clock icon. I recommend using these built-in buttons because it will make your life easier. And if you just click on the number itself, it'll give you 5-minute increments. So I know this person said 9:15 is when they checked in. The location and everything was okay. It was just that time. These are where the exception codes come into play. So in this drop down is a list for you to choose what options match this scenario. So using your best judgment, maybe it was that they forgot to check in when they arrived, so I could select that. And then the description box is a very short field, so you can't write a whole essay here, but this is just another way for you to leave a note to remember why you made this change. One of the things I like to note is that I verified this time with the service note. And then I can update that. And we're going to say yes. So now it's successfully updated. If I scroll down here, I can see that time is reflected. And over to the left, where it says see exceptions, I can come back and see what exception was chosen, who left it, when, and that reason or description that they left. That red border is still there because the time is still different than what it was scheduled for. If you're only using self check-in where you're not creating schedules in advance, the red border will probably happen less frequently, but it will happen particularly when you're manually entering data. It'll let you know if you have a discrepancy. Sometimes you may have created this visit for the 10th, and then when you went to manually enter it, maybe the date said the 9th. So again, just double check those things with the red border, just to make sure that it's not something that needs an edit. All right. So thanks, Nick, for dropping in that short video for us. And if there are any questions about that, feel free to jump in. This is also where you could make a new visit if you needed to. So if someone is going to be working in an area without connection and they need to check in offline, you could come in and create that visit here just by going to that date. So we'll create it for tomorrow. It's going to show me all my individuals I chose, and again, every hour of that day. So I would find my person and double click to create that visit. So when you are putting in the schedule, you do have to say a start and end time. It's okay if the staff works a different time than that. You know, maybe you schedule it for this time, but the family calls and says, hey, we need you to come at 12:30 because of this conflict. You know, the staff will still be able to check in and out. You just have to put in the schedule so that they can add it to their offline or use that IVR option. So who's the schedule for? Which program are they in? And then which service is it for? Also, which staff is going to be providing that service? This is the key information that you'll have to enter when you're creating a schedule in advance. You do not have to worry about any of this other piece. This is all optional. And I'm going to click approve. So that visit now looks like this yellow color. It's showing me that's the one that I was just working on. If I just click off into a blank space, I can see it as now that approved color. So that would be available for that staff person to add to their offline app, or if they need to use the call-in option, when I print that schedule for them, this slot ID will appear. All right, I'm going to go back to the dashboard. I do want to point out one other place. If you get a last minute call from someone and says, hey, I forgot, I'm going to this location where there's no service, I need you to put a schedule in for me. You can do just a quick one-off schedule here with that new slot button. It's going to ask me to choose which person. And again, put in that date and time. Which program, which service. If you don't have a service showing up, that is going to be an issue related to your authorization. So some of you may have entered authorizations that have since expired. If you need to, you can go in and extend that date, or once you, if you're waiting on that actual authorization from the state, you can put in a placeholder auth so that it can still be available for check-in. All right, so I'm going to switch over now to looking at that schedule EVV dashboard. So it's the same information we're looking at. It's just presented to us in a different format. So on our agency tab under scheduling, I'm going to click on schedule EVV dashboard. And I can look for up to 14 days at a time. You could run this as a daily report. If you want to see at the end of the day or the beginning of the new day what happened yesterday, you could just put in that one date there. I'm going to generate my dashboard. And I'm looking at the same check-in and check-out data that I saw on that calendar grid. This is just slicing it up into different sections. I think this makes it a lot easier to catch potential issues or to do sort of a quality check for this data. If you are one of those regional providers where you have multiple programs in your account, up here at the top, there's this funnel. And I could come in and say, I only want to look at this one program, or I could even come in and say, I only want to look at the specific service. So that will clean up your data a bit so you're not looking at programs that maybe you're not responsible for. So I'm not going to focus on every section here, but I do want to point out a few things. First, looking to see, I'm going to come down and see this. Schedule status. So these are those color codes. Approved, we've created them, they're blue, no one's checked in. Completed are those green visits. And if I wanted to see what these approved ones are, I can click to see when they were scheduled for, which individual, which staff, which service. And maybe this is something that I need to manually enter data for. I can click here to see more of the schedule and go here to edit. The nice thing about working from this screen is when you click to edit, it actually opens it in a new tab. So you're not losing where you were looking at your data. You could come in here and make these changes, close that tab when you're done, and then refresh this page. We have a little refresh icon up here to load to see that change in effect. So remember, when you're making those edits, you are using an exception code. So this is showing me all of the exception codes that have been added. So I can kind of see, are there themes? Maybe we have a lot of people forgetting to check in and out. I can click to see, who are these staff people? Maybe I need to do some retraining with them, or just have an in-service with them about this process. Another thing to check here are the distance variances. This is related to that geolocation. So it may be, and I've worked with a few providers, so this may happen to you. It may be that the geolocation that you have saved on the demographic form is not actually the correct location on the map. So it's looking like you're farther away. This will break it down to you're like 1/10 of a mile away, or a 1/4 of a mile away, or a 1/2 mile away, showing up from where your staff is checking in versus the location on the demographic form. So I can click to see which visit this is. I know this is me because my visit was scheduled to be in Kentucky and I live in Alabama. So it's showing up that I am more than 10 miles away from where that visit should be delivered. These that are NA are ones that were manually entered. So in that case, there is no geolocation, it just has an address. So it's really going to look for that comparison in distance for real visits that are captured in real time with that geolocation data. Another thing to check out are these overlaps. So this is a completed visit, but the individual is overlapping. I could also have this happen with staff. So clicking on here, I can see 8:10 to 9:50, and then 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. This is both, these visits are both for Sarah, different staff, different services, but they're happening at the same time. So our system is flagging it as an overlap. This is something that may need an edit, especially in situations where maybe the staff made an error and they checked in, they weren't sure if they checked in, so they checked in again. So they're actually checked in for the same individual, same service, same time. One of those would need to be deleted. This situation is a little bit different because it's overlapping services. I have a attendant there at the same time as a nurse. And, you know, that's really up for the state to indicate whether that is an acceptable practice or not. We can see the list of all the individuals or the people receiving those services. Which services have been checked in for? Which staff are actually doing those check-ins? We also got a breakdown of our duration. So if you're not expecting to see a visit that's more than 120 minutes, that might be an error where someone forgot to check out, and so their visit looks like it was really long. You can click on those to see which visits they're for, and again, go in and make an edit if needed. One other thing to check is the start date, check-in date mismatch. This is what I was mentioning earlier. If you're doing manual entries, especially if you're putting in historical data, maybe you're entering something for January 1st, but you accidentally put today's date, January 10th on there. It will show you if the scheduled date is mismatched from the actual check-in and check-out date, because that would cause a conflict with the aggregator as well. Okay, so those were the two key tools that I want you to be aware of for your daily review or, you know, your regular review of data. If you're needing to look at an entire month's worth of data at a time, you're looking at bulk information, you can do that from your agency reports tab under the report library view. I'm just going to type in EVV and search. There's a lot of reports here, so you can play around and see what works best for you. But I would recommend starting with the basic report. And I can put in that date range. This is something that, again, you would want to export to Excel. If you're working in this report, you're not able to edit from here, so you're really just reviewing the information. And I can see if I scroll over, it's a lot of data. But a nice way to look at this is the staff worked duration. This is going to show you what they actually checked in and out for. So if you see something that's blank, that means there's something missing. Either no one checked in or out, or maybe they checked in but forgot to check out. That's a visit that's going to need an edit if it's in the past. So one of the nice things about this report, if you're looking at a lot of data, you know, you put it in Excel, you can flag the things that you need to follow up on. And over here on the very beginning of the report is the schedule slot form ID. So everything in there has a unique form identifier. It kind of looks like alphabet soup, but we can copy this form ID and search by that. So we're going to this exact schedule instead of having to hunt through all of this data to try to find this specific date, this specific visit. So I'm just going to go, I've copied that. I'm going to go back to my dashboard, back to my agency tab, and up here on this first line, I'm just going to do a schedule search. So maybe I don't remember the date this is for. I'm going to take out the date and just put in that form ID. When I search, it's pulling up that one visit, and I can go straight in and make those edits. So wherever you're doing it, maybe it's a combination of all those things. These are the tools that you have to review the data, make changes to the data, and ensure that you are in compliance with the requirements from Kentucky. One other thing I want to point out before I hand it back over to Jason, we do have a support page where we have curated materials that are relevant to you. So we've got some videos and simulators here at the top. So if you want a quick video on how to enter that missed visit, or maybe there was a missed checkout you need to edit, this is a short video that will show you that. We also have links to these recorded meetings and the presentation slides. So you can access those or share those with team members that weren't able to attend. This top section is split out by different functions, and these are all user guides. So if I wanted to look at how to access that schedule EVV dashboard, when I click here, it's going to show me screenshots and walk me through those steps. Lastly, down here, those questions that you're asking, they do get posted here as frequently asked questions with our answers and then our list of service codes below. So I recommend bookmarking this page because we will keep it up to date with relevant information for your implementation. Are there any questions we should address before I hand it back to you, Jason?
I think we have covered most of the questions that have come in. Thank you. There was one question that came in that I think Nick addressed in the Q&A, but it may be something that other folks are running into, so it might be worth mentioning again, kind of publicly live. There was a question that came in about our therapy EVV visit search is blank. I can't tell if visits have been accepted or validated or rejected. What are we doing wrong? I know Nick mentioned some things around search parameters that might assist. Are there anything else you would share there?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question. I don't think I have it in this demo account to show, but I can show you here on the service authorization. There was a piece of that set up where you're choosing down here, and I'll try to zoom in. Under the service itself, that EVV service box needs to be checked, and you need to choose your billing provider. So if you're running into issues where you're not seeing those, or you're trying to do this, but you're getting an error message, that would be something we would want you to contact us at the KY support at therapservices.net so that we can troubleshoot that issue with you.
Great. Thank you, Steph.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing and hand it back over to you, Jason.
All right. Let me get mine back up. All right. Hopefully everyone can see that. And again, thank you, Stephanie, for all that information. Also, thank you to the Thera team, both Nick and Kelly. I know we're looking at questions kind of behind the scenes. A lot of stuff was coming in, and I think we were able to get most of them answered. Any that we don't get to by the close of the call, we'll certainly try to aggregate that and get it back out to you. But thank you guys for the continued questions. I think it's helpful, you know, as we always say, if you're thinking about a question, I guarantee 5 other people are too. So please reach out and we'll continue to try to address those. So with the remainder of our time, I did want to put a quick couple of reminders in here about what to expect coming up in our next town halls. I want to talk in kind of next expectations around communication that you're going to be hearing from us in the near future. And the first thing I want to mention is around aggregator access. As most of you, I think by now remember, the Therap Aggregator is kind of the secondary application where all of your EVV data goes. You know, you collect it within your Therap EVV platform or potentially within a third-party platform, but ultimately it all flows over to the Therap Aggregator, where we kind of use it as a repository to ultimately, long-term, it will be used to validate and deny claims. But one of the things that we are in the process of doing is making sure you guys all have access to that aggregator so that you can log in and see your data that is flowing over. Now, obviously, within your primary Therap account, if you're getting any kind of invalids or rejections or accepted, you'll be able to see what's going on there. But we also want you to be able to get into that aggregator as well. So in order to help kind of facilitate that process, I did want to remind everyone how access to the aggregator is going to work. It is going to be dependent on having access to the state's single sign-on portal known as the Kentucky Online Gateway, or COG for short. And so essentially what that means is you'll be able to access the aggregator by going in through COG, through the COG portal. You'll then have a link to go directly over into the Therap Aggregator. So you're not going to have to log in 2 places. You'll log into COG and then be able to directly link over to your aggregator account. Now, in order for that to work, we've got to be able to link your COG access over to your administrator access within the Therap aggregator. And so there's a couple of different ways that that can work. And so we're going to be following up with all of you guys and walking you through this. So don't worry about remembering every single word that's on the screen right now. But I did at least want to give you a heads up as to what to expect. For the overwhelming majority of you all, we would expect that you already have a COG administrator identified within your organization. And so for those agencies that have an identified COG administrator, if that is also the person that is going to be your aggregator administrator looking at your EVV data, then your access will be automatically linked and life's real easy for you. So that's an ideal scenario. Now, we also obviously understand that not everybody is going to fit into that situation. We're going to have some organizations who may have identified an alternate administrator that they want to look at their aggregator data outside of the person that is their existing COG administrator. That's certainly quite common. And so in those scenarios, the existing COG administrator will need to create a COG account for the aggregator administrator to be able to get into COG, which from there they'll be able to link over to the aggregator. Now, I recognize that may sound a little bit confusing. We use a lot of admins and aggregator terms and things like that. So we're going to be following up directly with you to address all of this, but wanted again to give you guys a heads up so you can be thinking about it so that when we reach out to you, we'll be prepared to get you set up. Now, there is also a third scenario that I should have put on the slide and forgot to do it, but I'll mention it quickly. We also understand that you may well be in a scenario where you don't know who your COG administrator is, or that particular person may not be available to you, may be unknown to you. And so what do we do in that scenario? In that scenario, you're going to let us know that. And then we're going to follow up with the state to get you guys taken care of. The state understands that may be the case for some of you guys. So we're going to walk through all three of those options with you. You're going to be hearing from one of us on our support team in the very near future to get this taken care of. And we'll present these options to you and make it clear as day, I do assure you. But again, wanted to just give you guys a heads up to expect that communication as it will be coming over fairly soon. Beyond that, I think you probably heard all of this 1,000 times, but there's nothing wrong with hearing it again. We obviously want to make sure all of you feel supported in your utilization of the EVV platform. So we've got a lot of different resources available to help you with that. Certainly, first and foremost is the use of our support alias, as you see on your screen, KYSupport@therapservices.net. That's going to shoot a message out to all of us on that support team. We will be following up with you as quickly as we can to address whatever issue. So that is the best way to reach out to us very quickly. We also have the Kentucky EVV support page, which you saw Stephanie share a moment ago. This is where we've tried to boil down all of those support resources into a one-stop shop for you guys to be able to see user guides, recorded videos, links, all sorts of things to help you with utilizing the system. So that's available to you. And then there are some additional resources made available by the state of Kentucky. One is the 1915C waiver help desk alias that you see on your screen. You can certainly write into that and folks can support you on the state side or point you in the right direction at least. And then once you're getting to the COG piece of this and utilizing COG to access the aggregator, there are some resources to assist you on the COG side as well. The COG help desk at ky.gov, or there is also a phone number and extension that is available during the week that you're certainly welcome to check out as well. So we think we've got you covered in terms of resources that are available. So please do not hesitate to reach out if we can help you in any way. I do want to quickly go over a couple of questions that were asked specifically during the last town hall that I'm not sure they were all addressed publicly. So I wanted to make sure you guys heard the responses. So I tried to pull them in together here. We did talk about this one a little bit last week, but I know some of you guys, particularly now as you're starting to utilize EVV more and more, you may be noticing that the GPS address that's coming in is not always exactly correct. It may show that the house next door or somewhere across the street. And the fact of the matter is GPS, just by its very nature, is not always 100% correct. It will occasionally show a nearby address. And this is very much understood and expected. That's kind of how it works. In your situation, though, you will only need to provide an exception code if the visit is greater than half a mile away from the expected location. So when you're going in and selecting and submitting that data, you can certainly do corrections in there as you see fit, but it is to be expected that on occasion, the data may not be exactly correct as it's coming in through the GPS satellites. There's also a question that we got last week around the necessity of staff providing additional verification of visits in Therap, either via signature or voice recording at checkout. You may have noticed that option within Therap's mobile app. This is not a state requirement, but is available as an option and is certainly encouraged as you are able. We do have another question that came in from our third-party vendor submissions. The question around whether we need to submit traditional Medicaid ID numbers for individuals as well as the MCO ID that we have. And the answer is yes, you do need to submit the Medicaid ID. This always needs to be included, as this is a required element within the aggregator. You will get an invalid, I think it's invalid, not rejected. I believe it'll get kicked initially as an invalid visit if you don't have a Medicaid ID present in the system. So do make sure you get those in there for all of your service recipients. And again, additional questions can be found on our support page, kind of bringing you back over here. I know most of you guys have seen this before a little earlier in the call, but we do have a lot of different questions in here that you can certainly go in and access as well. So we encourage you to do so. And with that, again, a lot of other training resources, please don't hesitate to check those out. Oh, and I also want to talk a little bit about our town hall schedule going forward so that you guys kind of know what to expect. I know we've been on a weekly cadence with these over the course, basically the entire implementation period. And we are going to continue to do the town halls. We think they're helpful and have certainly gotten good feedback from you all. So we are going to do another town hall next week, which is Wednesday, January the 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central. And during that one, we're going to focus a little more on aggregator navigation. It's our hope and expectation that more of you guys will have more visits. You'll be getting into the aggregator by that point. We certainly hope so. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can navigate around the aggregator, see some of your data inside of there, do some reporting within that piece as well. After that, we've kind of made the decision to step back the frequency of our town halls to every other week, at least in the short term, to kind of see where folks are. So after the call on the 17th, we're going to take a week off and then resume our town halls on Wednesday, January the 31st, also at 1 p.m. Eastern. And our plan at this point is to focus on billing and claiming. We know by that point you guys should be in pretty good shape with your actual EVV data, and we want to give you some reminders and refreshers on how to turn that EVV data into billing and claims for those of you that are working on that. So we're planning on covering that at that time. Obviously, depending on what happens between now and then, if we hear additional information from different folks, we certainly reserve the right to change our topics to meet the needs or what we feel will be most beneficial for the group. But that at this time is what our plan is, and we'll continue to communicate with you guys about that going forward. With that, let me ask again if there are any additional questions. I've seen several coming in, and I also have seen a lot of our staff kind of typing feverishly to try to get these things answered. So let me see if there are any others. Could there be a separate training for folks using third-party vendors? Yes, Deanna, I see your question here around third-party vendors. And we're going to be communicating a lot of stuff directly out to you guys because you all, you have kind of unique circumstances with connecting through a third-party vendor. And so you're going to be spending a lot more time in the aggregator and establishing all that connection. So we'll be communicating to you guys specifically about some of that as we go forward. Let me see. The next question I see on here, do we have to manually send information for this Therap site to the aggregator, or does that happen automatically? I'm going to let somebody answer that more articulately, perhaps, than I could. Stephanie,
I'm happy to jump in on that. Yeah.
Please.
So there are some setup pieces that you do on your authorization and with your billing provider setup that makes that connection with the aggregator. And then once the visits are completed, they should be automatically being sent over to the aggregator. What we see often at the beginning of an implementation is there is a lot of work that you have to do to make sure the data is going over, to clear those invalids where maybe you're missing some requirements. And then once you've made those corrections, the data really works in the background. The main thing would be, you know, as you add a new individual and get that service authorization created, that you've got that set up in place so that the connection, the data is able to transfer automatically in the background. So as you clear some of these invalid submissions and work through some of those rejections, that will pave the way for even more smooth transfer of data in the future.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you, Stephanie. And I did just see one other question that I had missed prior around, there's a question about whether you need to log in to Therap to check data rejections. And perhaps that's something you should communicate with your third-party vendor. Yes, you know, you'll be able to get into the Therap aggregator once that connection's established and see that data. But dealing with your rejections and working through those will be work that you'll do with your third-party vendors. So I would recommend following up directly with them in those scenarios as to how to work that within their application. Let's see. I don't see any other questions right now. Am I missing anything? Looks like Stephanie is responding to some folks in the chat too, or has already. Anything else? Anything from our friends and from the state of Kentucky that you guys would like to add here?
No, Jason, we're good. Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, again, we do appreciate your time and thank you, Stephanie and the entire Therap team for folks that were chiming in to help answer a lot of those questions. Thank you all again for those who submitted questions. It's very helpful for us. Certainly, we want to make sure we're answering you, but when we hear from you, we know kind of where your mind's at and it helps us tailor the message that we get out to everybody when we know the things that are forefront that you're running into. So again, much appreciated. Thank you guys all for the time. And again, we will see you all the same time next week, Wednesday the 17th. We'll talk a little more about the aggregator on that date. And between now and then, please don't hesitate to reach out if we can help you with all things EVV. Thanks, everyone, and have a great afternoon.